would say, there's a few people that have influenced me over the past, like Deep Work and some of those classic books where it's
Yeah.
all about that focus. But lately, just Alex Hormozy stuff. We've talked about him a few times, but he brought a lot of clarity to it with his, units of output
Yeah.
analogy, where it's like, he's like, people are like, well, I've got to get up and do this morning routine. I've got to meditate for 20 minutes. I have to do this certain food thing. I've got to do this cold plunge. I've got to do this exercise. And 2 hours later, like now I can start, like, now I'm gonna have like an awesome productive day. And he's like, there was no output in that.
Yeah.
It's like, you can do that, but he's like, if you want to, it's really just mathematical. Every hour, what does it equal as far as output? So he's like, I wake up, grab a cup of black coffee, and start working.
Yeah.
He's like, that's what I would do if I want to get the most amount of output.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Own the Exit. I'm Caleb, your co-host, and I'm here in the studio with Aaron. What's up, Aaron?
What's up, Caleb? Haven't seen you for, I don't know, 24 hours since yesterday.
It's been at least 24 hours.
I'm also your co-host, Aaron. Just excited for you guys to jump on another episode.
Absolutely. Aaron and I just got back from a trip to Los Angeles, sunny California, right?
Yep, we were at a capital raising event out there with a bunch of people. It was good. It was cool to see other people, different asset classes, different goals, but all kind of doing the same thing, raising capital, taking down apartment buildings, industrial, building stuff, houses, everything.
Absolutely.
It was fun.
Met a lot of interesting people, had the opportunity to share on the panel on the first day there, which was really fun. And it was really kind of the kind of room that you want to be in. And, I think a lot about how getting into rooms like that challenges you to get more output or productivity, right? Because you see all of these other like high performing people, and there's almost like this inspiration that happens when you get in quality rooms with quality people, where there's a kind of a condensed like pool of excellence, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, even one of the guys we were talking with out there, Kevin, who basically he lives in Los Angeles, and he built a construction company that's in multiple markets with a project manager in those markets and teams renovating $1 million houses, and he doesn't leave LA.
Right. He literally built 2 large-scale construction companies.
Yeah, and construction's
markets
hard.
on the other side of the country completely remotely. He built it literally from his laptop in a coffee shop.
Pretty much, yeah. And he does go there once in a while, like quarterly or whatever. But to be able to do that, and kind of like you said, like with productivity, he's kind of hacked that and found a way to create a lot of output.
We're gonna actually get him on the show. I was texting him just the other day.
Oh, good! I can't wait.
He's excited about coming on the show here.
Yeah, he is inspirational. But yeah, that was just an example. And there was a lot of people there. So I think those events are really good because a lot of times, whether it's just even local meetup or a mastermind or networking, because sometimes you're like, well, what am I going to get out of it? Like, I'm not going to learn anything. Or I mean, I've had those thoughts, even though I obviously have a lot to learn. But it's like, oh, do I have time for that? Like, but there's always, it's just like you said, a lot of it is like intangible or inspirational, or it's not even like there was a specific piece of knowledge, even though I did learn some things like that was knowledge,
of course.
But it's just interacting with people that are doing it and having that connection. So it was awesome.
Yeah. So I think for me, what it has made me kind of want to talk about and think more about is how to increase productivity. Here on Own the Exit, what we talk about is building a business in such a way that you can reduce your level of active involvement to a point where, it's like eventually zero, right? Like that's an ultimate exit, right? Is where your business is continuing to run without you. Maybe you built it all the way up and you sell it. It's a full, acquisition or merger into another company.
Yeah.
Or you've built it in such a way that it's sustainable without your active involvement, and you're just able to kind of reap the benefits of the thing that you built. And ultimately, the desire of folks in the Own the Exit community that have that level of clarity and vision is, I want to achieve time freedom. Right? Financial freedom is a goal that a lot of people have, and I understand that, but I think financial freedom is sort of like it's a moving target. Like, what does that even mean? Like, if you make $10,000 a month in your business and you could get $10,000 a month in passive income and you're 35, then would you just stop working, right? Would you stop trying to create more financial sustainability, or whatever it is?
And even financial freedom, like why, right?
Right.
Like it actually comes down, like as you continue down that line of thinking, it actually is about time.
It's about time, because if you're actively involved in your business right now, which all of us are, right? Most people on the Own the Exit community are still actively involved in their business, then you're still at a place where you're trading time for money. Regardless of how your business is set up, whether you're a business owner, you have some flexibility maybe in your schedule or whatever, but you still are not going to achieve output without giving an input of time. Right. And so you're selling that time to produce that output. So I guess the question around productivity is, how do you increase your output per unit of time while you do that? And if you can infinitely continue to increase your output per unit of time, let's say you make $100, you put in an hour of work and you make $100, right? Then you got to put 100 hours of work in every month to generate $10,000 in income, right? So how can you generate that same $10,000 in income in 50 hours a month, right? So how do you increase your output per unit of time to buy your time back?
Yeah.
And whether that's, I'm using 10,000 because it's a round number. A lot of people are more ambitious than that. That's what they want. You and I know, our ambitions are higher than that. But so
it's easy math though.
Yeah, it's easy math.
And that's when you're entrepreneur minded, or you have a business, it really matters. Because if you're working 40 hours a week, and not every employee is like this, but the old way of thinking too, of just like, hey, you have to be here from 9 to 5. You work 40 hours a week in this, like, there's no reason to be better.
Yeah.
Like, and if you actually are better and you get that done in 20 hours, then you just get more work.
Right.
You're not allowed to go home.
Right.
It's
and that's an interesting thought, because what an employee is leverage for the business owner. Right?
Yeah.
As an employee gets better, the business owner is getting the increased output per unit of that person's time.
Right.
Right? And so the business owner has a vested interest in that person producing more in an hour, but the employee, I think the employee mindset is, that classic employee mindset of clock in, clock out, just get my work done. That is one of the biggest reasons why I think entrepreneurs who set out in business, they don't like that, is because
you're rewarded for just showing up, not for actually creating any value.
Exactly.
Which is the opposite in business, because you can work 100 hours a week in your business, and if you don't create any value, you don't get rewarded.
Yeah.
So it's just a waste.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of people, right, Aaron, that talk about how to increase your output, productivity. There's, gurus out there, productivity gurus, all that kind of stuff. Who would you say is the number one person who has influenced you in the area of growing and increasing your productivity and your output?
Yeah, I would say, there's a few people that have influenced me over the past, like Deep Work and some of those classic books where it's all about that focus, but lately just Alex Hormozi stuff. We've talked about him a few times, but he brought a lot of clarity to it with his, units of output analogy, where it's like, he's like, people are like, well, I've got to get up and do this morning routine. I've got to meditate for 20 minutes. I have to do this certain food thing. I've got to do this cold plunge. I've got to do this exercise. And 2 hours later, like, now I can start, like, now I'm going to have like an awesome productive day. And he's like, there was no output in that.
Yeah.
It's like, you can do that, but he's like, if you want to, it's really just mathematical. Every hour, what does it equal as far as output? So he's like, I wake up, grab a cup of black coffee, and start working.
Yeah.
He's like, that's what I would do if I want to get the most amount of output.
Right.
So it was just interesting, of like, because we can kind of like create all these things around being productive.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that came out of that. I think it's just working. Like it's shutting off all of those distractions. So for me, that's, like the Deep Work concept of like, it's very easy for me to get distracted, to get into a conversation, to just internally be distracted. and not have focus. And so shutting all that down and having those chunks of time for me is huge.
And I think it comes down to what personality type do you have? How are you wired? Not personality type even. It's like, how are you wired? Like, I know for me, when I'm probably a little bit more like Alex Hormozy in this regard, right? When I wake up in the morning, I have the highest level of energy and mental clarity and focus that I'm going to have for the entire day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But my wife is totally different. She wakes up, it takes her a couple of hours like to kind of work her way into her day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But then as the day goes on, it's like she ramps up into her highest level of energy towards the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm starting high energy, high focus, high mental clarity, and I'm sort of, it's sort of going down throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
She starts low and sort of ramps up through to the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, and I've had this conversation with a number of people, and they're, most everyone can like resonate with being one of those two. I don't even know if there's maybe an official scientific term for it. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I think knowing, for me, the number one thing that has helped me produce more in periods of time, right, to get more output per unit of time, the number one thing that has helped me has been knowing how I'm wired.
Mm-hmm.
And not trying to just force some kind of cookie cutter concept
Mm-hmm.
that someone else is doing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like I love the idea of a morning routine. I have a morning routine. I do that more for like my just like personal balance than I do for productivity.
Right.
But ultimately, I know my most productive hours of the day are going to be the first 3 or 4 of my workday.
Mm-hmm.
Because as the day goes on,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna it takes more effort for me to maintain focus,
Mm-hmm.
right, as the day goes on.
Right.
And that's just how I'm wired. And so knowing that helps me to say, okay, I'm going to front load
Mm-hmm.
the most important tasks earlier on in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to front load the things that take the most mental effort and take the most focus and take the most, like thought. And I need the maximum brain power for those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has been an absolute game changer for me, is just realizing how I'm wired. Right?
No, that's good. I'm just thinking about, people that are like, if you want to be productive, you've got to get up early.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you're wired differently, like, says who though, right? Like there's 24 hours in a day. So it's like, you have to find those units of time when you're going to have the most output based on how you're wired and based on what's going on in your life. I think it's getting up early is great in a lot of times, because there's no one, if no one else is up, then at least you've eliminated that. No one's going to call you at 4:30 in the morning and all the stores and businesses are closed. So it's like, kids are asleep. Perfect. But you can do that at night too.
Yeah.
Or you could do that in the afternoon if that's your time.
Right.
If you can just lock yourself away. So, just kind of going along with what you said, the way you're wired is really important to, it's how you're wired, and then it's also your environment.
Yeah. Environment's huge. So it's like getting into like knowing what kind of work do I need to do and what kind of environment spot do I need to be in. And I think that's we've talked a lot about remote work versus office work, right? Yeah. And I think for me, it's why I like the hybrid model for myself, is there's certain tasks that I know collaboration in a team environment is going to be the best way to get the best outcome.
Yeah.
But then there's those things that I just need to be completely alone and limit distractions completely. Lock myself away in a room and just go to work for 4 hours, right? Just bottle of water, computer in front of me, and just crank out work for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And I'll get 8 hours worth of work done in 4 hours if I can get in that environment.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. So what are 2 or 3, absolute essentials in terms of optimal work environment for you?
Yeah, so 2 or 3, essential. I mean, really, for me, this is for everyone. I think your phone.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to it. I always have it. I check it in the morning. It's always with me. So that's huge. I mean, if I just flip the airplane mode,
yeah,
my productivity goes it doubles.
That's awesome.
Because anytime you look at it, I think there's a
It'd
statistic
probably quadruple if you took it and put it in your bag, right? You're not even tempted to see it.
Yeah. No, I flip the airplane mode off to see if anybody texted and then flip it back on. But no, I think there was a statistic where if you're in a deep work state and you get distracted or pulled off, I think it's 13 minutes, or I can't remember.
It's 23 minutes.
16. Is it 23?
It takes 23 minutes to get back into that flow state.
Yeah, so hours can go by where you don't actually get a lot done, because if somebody calls you every 20 minutes or text or an email dings, which that happens 3 times an hour, easily. Yeah. When you're working, then you could actually go several hours, and you're in front of your computer, you've got the thing up, you're doing the thing, but it's not really being done in a timely manner as quick as it could have been done. Thing that could take 20 minutes would take an hour.
Right.
So for me, just shutting the phone off, that's an obvious one. And then just trying to stay focused on the task at hand.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy to, even the distractions, if they're not external, they can be kind of internal, or even the way you set up your own work. I'm just speaking for myself. If I'm trying to do 2 or 3 things at the same time, even if no one's calling me, even if I'm in a windowless room, it's still not productive, because I'm switching back and forth. I'm reading this, I'm trying to do this contract, I'm trying to create this. So I just need to it's discipline, and it's saying, I'm only going to do this. I'm going to complete this. And then I have that feeling of satisfaction. Absolutely. And then I move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And just keep doing that thing until it's done.
I've heard people talk about this, that if you find yourself prone to bouncing between multiple tasks and you want to increase productivity, then look at all the tasks. The second that you become aware of it, take all the tasks, put them in front of you and say, which one's the easiest and will take me the least amount of time to do? And start with that one. And do that one first, shut the other ones off, do that one first, and get it done, and it builds and creates positive momentum.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when you get that little one done, then it's do the second hardest one. And then the third, and then the one that's most time consuming. Right. And that sort of flies in the face and might get me in hot water amongst
the eat the frog or whatever.
Eat the frog people.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm talking specifically about when you are in a workflow, not when you are getting up in the morning and looking at everything you need to do for your day. Right. But when you're already in a workflow and you catch yourself getting distracted because you have 2 or 3 or 4 different tasks that you need to get done in this 4-hour chunk of time.
Yeah.
Then it's okay, prioritize getting momentum, because what your brain needs right now is momentum.
Because it's emotional, a lot of it.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of the Dave Ramsey. I was just talking to someone actually yesterday, financial stuff. They're trying to get their finances, organized. Yeah. So they have 5 or 6 debts. And, Dave Ramsey is pay off the smallest debt first.
Yeah.
And you're
snowball.
Well, so this guy does have a debt. It's 0 interest. It's a family loan.
Yeah.
But it's the smallest amount of money that he owes.
Yeah.
And he's well, no, I want to pay off this credit card or something, because I'm just pay off the small one and get that win.
Yeah.
Because he can do it in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then move on to the next one, next one, is because so much of it's mathematically, that's not the right way to do it.
Right.
But it's
a psychology
It's not
game.
about the math.
It's a psychology
It's about the consistency, and because if it was just mathematical, then everyone would be successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But most people aren't, because of the stuff we're talking about now, or execution, or emotions, or things, or thoughts, or stuff, the distractions, right? When we get off and you don't achieve the goal. So I love that idea of hitting those smaller victories, and there's nothing greater than checking that off,
Absolutely.
That
checking off, got it done.
Yeah.
Speaking of got it done, we got this episode done. This is the end of the show. This is the end of the show here. So thank you guys for joining us for another episode of On the Exit. We hope that this has been valuable to you. If it has, then we'd ask you just to share it with a couple of folks you think would benefit from it. And then if you have not subscribed, what are you doing with your life? Go ahead and subscribe and then leave us a review on wherever you listen to this, iTunes, Spotify, anything else. Also, if you're listening to us on YouTube or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we also put every one of these episodes with full video on YouTube. So I'd love for you to go and check us out at On the Exit on YouTube as well.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. No, I love this kind of stuff. I mean, especially for entrepreneurs. I think it's so easy because there's so many things pulling. There's always a new initiative. There's always a problem to solve. There's always a person, and so this is a good episode and definitely stuff I'm working on.
Zoom in, applying. Get focused, eat the frog, get some momentum.
Measure those units of time and track it.
Absolutely.
Understand what output you're getting for that unit.
Yeah.
And then try to do better.
Exactly. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.